Okay. Works. All right, just hold a second. Okay, apparently we are on YouTube now, so I'm going to record this session.
Okay.
I'm going to begin the recording. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. So here with us is Reinhard Kleist, a German artist, author of many books of comics and graphic novels. He won his first Max and Moritz Prize in 1996 for his book Lovecraft. He has written well-known biographies of Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Nick Cave, but he has also written about political figures such as Fidel Castro or sportsmen and women. Okay, for example, he has a book about the tragic story of the Somalian sprinter Yusuf Omar. Okay, and his most recent book, Knockout, deals precisely with the life of a boxer, right? A bisexual American boxer called Emil Griffith. Okay, and in 2018, Kleist received the Max and Moritz Prize to the best German language comic artist. All right. So, hello, Reinhard. I hope this is.
Hello, buenos dias.
Hola, bueno.
That's about it for my Spanish.
We'll talk about your knowledge of Spanish a little bit later. Eh? Right. Let me share this PowerPoint that I have prepared for this conversation with you, right? Okay, and we can talk a little bit about first your life and then your work, right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very old photo of me.
This is back in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Well, the T-shirt is from a comic project that I made around 2000. So.
Right. Fact.
And
right.
in the background, you see some pages from Fidel Castro. So it must actually. It's not that old. It must be from 2008 or something.
You look the same, anyways.
Thank you.
So, talk about your birth, right? Okay, and your first years, right? And you were born in a place called Hurth, right?
Yes, it's called Hürth and it's close to Cologne, but this was just the place of the hospital where I was born. I was raised in an even smaller village called Großfernich, which Groß means big in Germany, but it's not big at all.
This is where you spent your childhood.
Yeah,
right?
that's where I spent my childhood in, up to the time when I finished school and I did my civil service, and then I applied for a place at an art school,
Right.
the School for Graphic and Design in Münster.
Right.
This is where I went. After I finished my civil service.
Right. Right. But I wanted to ask you, like, what as a child, when did you begin to get into comics? I mean, did you read comics as a child? I mean, did you ever think that you would become a comic book artist as an adult?
Not really. I was drawing comics with friends in school underneath the desk, so the teacher wouldn't see us. And we had something like a little group where we watched a lot of movies. One of my friends, he had a Super 8 projector, and we watched some science fiction movies, and then we made comic books from those movies.
Okay.
And this was my first attempts to draw comics, and I was very, very much interested into the world of movies, and
Okay.
to do comics was something like a compromise because I was not able to shoot a movie, so I was drawing comics.
Right.
But later on, I turned more into the so-called serious art. I wanted to be a painter, so I was painting a lot with oil colors and watercolors, and actually I wanted to go to the arts university. My father convinced me to do graphic design because he thought that this is much more capable of making some money.
Do you have any reference in your family? I mean, in your family there was any person who was an artist, or
not really. My father, he's a teacher for mathematics and chemistry and physics, all the subjects in school where I was really, really bad. And I have a grandfather. Unfortunately, he died before I was born, and he was very artistic, and he was very skilled with building things. And I think I have a lot from him, but well, as I said, I never met him, which
Right.
is really a pity.
Right. So I mean, your first thought was to become a painter, right? Okay.
Yeah, like a serious artist.
So it was like your father who like changed your mind, because he said, okay, I mean, let's have a compromise, right? And you can go ahead and do graphic design and illustrations and so on, right?
Yeah, something more where he can make a little bit more money. But what he didn't expect was that within a very short time, I discovered comic books again in the library of my school. They had some books from comic artists that really, really influenced me in my first time. It was people like Dave McKean and Bill Sienkiewicz, and those were comic book artists, and they were very famous in the 90s because they made something where they used different kinds of storytelling and also artistic influences to tell comic stories. Like they did a lot of painting, they used photographs, and also they did a lot of collage, and they were very, very experimental. And I was very huge fan of their work. And we had a little comic artist group in my school, and we were also doing collaborations together. And I was starting to work in that direction. And yeah, nobody really did that in Germany at that time. So my first book that I did when I was still in art school was about Lovecraft, and I experimented with all these different styles that I saw from these American or English artists. So this book is very much influenced by them.
You went to a school in Munster, right? I mean, I don't know. My German is really bad, you know. So this is the school you went to.
Not this one.
Well, sort of, right? Sort of. Well,
Yeah.
this is the name of the school you went to, but actually it was this building, right?
Yeah, it's this building. It was a very, very beautiful and very, very nice art school. It was where we had a lot of freedom as students, and we could use all the rooms in the building. There was always something going on. Unfortunately, they tore it down, I think 10 years ago, and replaced it with a very modern and clean building, which I don't like very much.
Right.
This school gave me the opportunity to work really free and really to experiment a lot. And I also did a lot of photography and painting and printing techniques. And I was not really interested in doing graphic design and design at all. I wanted to do something more free. And I also had a professor who really influenced me, and he was much more into people like Joseph Beuys or Rebecca Horn. And so I was also, besides my illustration work, I was also doing very much work as a free artist.
Right. So it was actually at university that you began to think that you might want to be a comic book artist, right?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Right.
The first book that I did about Lovecraft, it was presented at the International Book Fair in Frankfurt at the stand of my school, because they had a stand there where they were presenting the works of the students. And actually, somebody, he was also a designer. He worked for a big publishing company in Germany. He discovered the book there, and he told this to his colleagues. So 1 year later, I signed a contract, and this book was published. And it was while I was still in school. So that was like the first step into the world of comic books, like from 0 to 100, because it was one of the biggest publishing houses in Germany that edited this book. And it became quite popular, and it won a big prize. So that was my step into the world of comic books.
Right. But I see that at that time you were kind of influenced by the Gothic, the supernatural, right? Like authors like Lovecraft, like Oscar Wilde, right? The Portrait of Dorian Gray, and so on. Was it because you were reading these authors, or I mean, why did you write these kind of stories, horror stories, Gothic?
Yeah, I was reading these books, Lovecraft. I was reading a lot of Lovecraft, and I was always interested in dark literature, so the book Lovecraft was something like a mixture of the biography of H.P. Lovecraft together with his work, and actually it's something that I'm still doing. And sometimes like something that I did with the work of Nick Cave. It's almost similar to the Lovecraft book. And with the book Dorian, I wanted to do something differently. I wanted to take the book by Oscar Wilde and do like a modern version of it. And as you see, with the typographics, it was the time when this first electronic album of Björk came out. So I copied the typography to make it to look really modern. And and I still like the book Dorian. It's very dark. It's very cold, and it was a huge flop.
Well, I mean, Lovecraft was like a huge success, you know. So you also have to have flops, as you're saying. But yes, it's interesting what you're saying, because I mean, many people know your work, you know, especially biographies of singers, you know, and songwriters, and so on, and they don't see the connection sometimes, you know, with your first work, you know. But I see the connection, you know, because there is a dark side, you know, in some of the characters that you portray, you know, or that you write about, right? Okay. Johnny Cash, you know, like Nick Cave, as you said, you know, Emil Griffith, you know. So there's like a continuing line there, right?
Absolutely, yes. Well, people like Nick Cave, for example, they also have, well, besides having a really dark side, they also have this side where they are really, really good storytellers, and very many of their stories, they have like a really, really bad plot, and that's what always interesting to me, also in characters. Is, well, the not only the dark side, but also the conflict where the stories evolve from the personality of the people. So this is actually, well, very much the case by Johnny Cash, or also Nick Cave.
Correct. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit later about these books, you know. But like continuing, you know, going on with story of your life. And after you finish school, you move to Berlin, right? Okay. And that's
Yes.
a new phase in your life, I suppose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Münster is a very nice city, and I had a very, very good time studying there. But it was not the place I wanted to stay. I wanted to go out into the world, and Berlin was the place where the things were happening in the middle of the 90s. So I went to Berlin, and yeah, I really dived into, let's say, the nightlife of the city. Yeah, I was quite partying
Right.
a lot in the first, let's say, 7-8 years, and I didn't get very much done in that time. So so partying in Berlin was really nice, but at some point I really had to stop. I had to make the decision, okay, if I want to keep going this bohemian lifestyle, or if I want to continue with my work. And I found out what I actually really, really want is to do the work that I felt I have to do. And the nightlife was sucking so much energy out of me that I had to stop it.
But in Berlin, you also, I mean, yes, I remember that back in the 90s, you know, Berlin was the place to be, you know, in Europe, you know, it's like where all artists wanted to be, right? Okay. And you met some fellow artists there. I think you shared the studio with some German artists, right? Like Mawil.
Yeah. I work in the studio with 4 other artists. I mean, there's a lot of change. People are leaving, people are staying. I'm one of the oldest in the studio. We are still there since I don't know, 20 years or so, and this is one of my favorite places because it's a place where I can really focus on my work, and I get a lot of things done there. And it has a very creative atmosphere. It's in one of the poshest streets in Berlin, and the building, it used to be a squat, but they turned it into a housing project with a back building with cultural institutions in there, and we are one of them. So this is a really, really cool place and very cool place to concentrate on your work.
Then, to some extent, this artistic atmosphere saved you from the nightlife.
In a way, yes. I really have to say at some point in my life, it was around 2004, I really was at the point where I said, okay, I cannot go on like this. My money was going down. I didn't get any jobs. My books didn't sell because I was not putting too much energy in them. And I really had to make a decision at that point. And the decision came actually with the Johnny Cash book. And well, I was leaving the place where I was staying. I moved to a friend's house. We shared a flat together, and he brought me into contact with the work of Johnny Cash because he's a huge Johnny Cash fan. And then he gave me a biography of Johnny Cash, and he said, yeah, you with your stupid stories there all the time, do something real, do something about this man. And then I was reading the book about Johnny Cash, and it really was blowing my mind. I didn't expect that it's such a good story.
So like to do about joke, Johnny Cash brought you the cash, right?
Yeah. Actually, well, he saved my career, and he brought me some cash as well.
Right, but let me talk a little bit, just briefly, before we go deeper into your Johnny Cash book, about this comic series, Berlin Noir, because I think this mixes like two important aspects of your life. One is the Gothic that we just talked about, right? Another is Berlin, right? Okay, so you put together these two components, let's say, right? And you get like Berlin Noir. I don't know how to say it in German. And this was done in collaboration with Tobias Meissner, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We met at the book fair. I think it must have been 2002 or something, and we were talking about projects, and I really liked his style of writing, and so we were thinking about doing a project together. And at that time, I already had in my mind, okay, I have to do something. I have to turn my career around. So I was wanting to do a book to approach the French market. And yeah, we decided, okay, let's do something with the vampires, let's do something with Berlin. And then Tobias was writing a script, and I looked through it, and I really, really liked his idea because he was turning the whole thing around. He developed like a second world Berlin, which was ruled by the vampires, and then he had rebels fighting against the government, and he was using this framework to do a political satire, and also to mix all different things from the history of Berlin and Germany into this story and stir it around, and then you have this monster of story which became Berlin Noir.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I haven't visited Berlin many times, but like this Gothic side maybe hasn't been explored too much, and that's why I consider interesting, like this association between Berlin, and the Gothic, that you explored, and that Tobias Meissner, recreated, in a way, right? Okay. But then soon you got involved in a big project, okay, that became very successful, right? We're talking about the Cash.
Yeah.
And yes, go ahead.
Oh yeah. The Berlin Noir was not really successful, and it was not really entering the French market with the big bang. It was more like a small pff. And so yeah, we made 2 parts of the story, and then I decided, okay, I have to do something different, and then the idea with the Johnny Cash book came to my mind. So I stopped working on the Belle Noire series, and I concentrated on the Johnny Cash book. And actually, it was at the time when the movie was announced, and first I was quite afraid.
Walk the Line, no?
The Walk the Line movie, which is really, really good. But yeah, I was really afraid that people might say, "Oh yeah, he's doing a Johnny Cash book because the movie came out, blah blah blah." And but I saw the movie and I really, really like it. But the comic book and the movie, we are going into completely different directions. He's focusing more on the love story, and I'm focusing more on the relationship between Johnny Cash and his work. And my idea about the book was that I didn't want to make a biography which is just focusing on parts of Johnny Cash's life and retelling the story. I wanted to focus more on bringing the music into visuals. So I had this idea to put illustrations of his songs into the story, like short stories that are splattered in the story. And this became like the I think one of the biggest points in the book, that you see the stories that Johnny Cash is telling in his songs. You see them like short stories in the narration, and sometimes they mix together. And this is really what I wanted to do. And another big part of the book is, in the end of the book, I have a huge chapter where I'm retelling the Folsom Prison concert, because this was also something that I wanted to show, that music can be an adventure. That this concert was total punk rock. What he was doing there was a complete adventure. It's really, really fantastic story to tell. And in this concert, therefore so many things come together. And so yeah, the book has these 2 highlights, these 2 focuses.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how you introduce music in the book, through that technical device, of telling the stories, that the song portray, right? Okay, and so you introduce like songs into the story, right? And that's really interesting.
Yeah, because yeah, there's like some of his songs are really, really short stories that he's telling, like
Correct.
"Don't Bring Your Guns to Town." It's a brilliant short story with a twist in the end, and also songs like "Ghost Riders in the Sky." In the moment when he was singing it, and in the moment where I put this song in the book, it's not only this ghost story that he's telling there, it's also telling something about his life. And at some point, he was seeking redemption, and this song is actually doing exactly that, because there's just this cowboy, and he sees the herds and yeah, the ghost cowboys there, and they're saying, if you don't change your life, then you will end up like us. And that's exactly what he did. He was changing his life, and that's what saved him.
Correct. Okay, okay, moving on, because we don't have much time, and your production is big.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. I said, it's like it's a pleasure to read your books, and I'm being honest. Um, After Johnny Cash, you tried Elvis Presley.
Yeah, that was a small project. It was the idea of a friend of mine. He wanted to make a collaboration with different artists, and we like Elvis. So we took the story of his life and we divided it into certain chapters, and we gave every chapter to different artists. So the idea behind the book was really, really nice, but at some point the book doesn't work because Elvis and all the other characters, they look totally different from story to story. And I was thinking a lot about this book and why it didn't work out. And I think we made a big mistake by building the concept of the book. I think we should have worked in the storytelling with the idea to ask different artists. So so my idea would have been, well, later on, it was that we should have done a concept where, for example, people are interviewed and they tell a part of Elvis Presley's life, and then you see this part of Elvis Presley's life through the eyes of the person that's telling the story, and this would explain the different style. If you just use different styles to follow a continuing story, it doesn't really make sense. So that was a big problem of the book.
Mm-hmm. Also, again, like the fact that you write that you have written some biographies about musicians has anything to do with you being a real fan of music? I mean, you are really very much.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I really like the world of music, and also the stories that are evolving around music, and for me it's still fascinating to use a medium that doesn't have sound to tell stories that actually are about sound, and to make the sound visible in the stories.
Right. But you never had the temptation of becoming a musician or anything like that?
I'm not really a music person. Like, I really admire people that can play an instrument or that can sing. Actually, I'm working together with a band. We do a lot of live drawing concerts together, and I also do a lot of live drawing concerts with bands from all over the world, because I'm very often I'm invited by the Goethe Institute to do presentations or workshops, and I always combine it with live drawing concerts. And I really, really like this, these events, like building something together with a band and putting music and pictures together. And that's perfect with live drawing concepts.
Right. So music is definitely part of your life, right? And the third musician that you wrote about, okay, or you wrote a biography about was Nick Cave, right? Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the process? How, I mean, at what point do you think, or why do you want to write about Nick Cave? Did you get in touch with Nick Cave? Did you talk with him about your project, etc., etc.?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Nick Cave, and at some point I discovered that I did some really difficult projects before, like the Fidel Castro book and the book about Samir Yusuf Ammar, and I wanted to have the fun back that I had when I was doing the Johnny Cash book. It was lots of fun to work on the Johnny Cash story, and I kind of lost that doing these quite difficult projects. So I decided, okay, I do another biography about a musician. So who's it gonna be? And then the first one who came into my mind was Nick Cave, because he's also a storyteller in his music, and he's a very, very interesting figure, and he also has a very dark side to him, which attracts me. So I talked to people, and then somebody said, okay, I know somebody who knows somebody. And then soon after a while, I was in contact with Nick Cave, and it turned out that he's a huge comic book fan, and he already knew my book about Johnny Cash, and he really, really liked it. So he was willing to give some input into the story. So we had some meetings, and also a very funny telephone conversation, and we exchanged some emails, and slowly he pushed me into the direction he was thinking, and I was not really aware of that in the beginning. So I was writing some scripts, some ideas about how I would tell the story, which framework would I use to tell the story of his life, and I translated them into English and I sent it to him, and his reaction was like politely saying he was not really interested in that. And then I realized, okay, I have to do something completely different and actually come back to the first thing he wrote me about the book, about his ideas for the book. He said, do something like mythological. And that's what I did. And that's when I came up with the idea of using narrators, which are actually figures from his songs or from his novels, and they are telling his life from their perspective. And then I was thinking more and more about this framework, and I came to a point where I could actually do something that's really, really working with his idea of being an artist and his idea of the creative process. I was reading a lot of interviews and also a speech he was giving to students, and I realized that he's thinking the same way. He said something that if you write a story where the people in the story, they come to life and you accept them as living persons, then this actually makes you some kind of god in your own universe. You're creating a universe and you're acting like some kind of god. You can kill the people, you can let them fall in love or everything. And so I was thinking, okay, if I do that, so I could also take these people from his stories and rebel against their creator, because most of the times they die in the end in Nick Cave stories. So I let them ask the question, so why did you kill us? Why do we have to die all the time? So is it just for a good ending, or what's the point? So this is what I'm following in the book, besides telling more or less facts about Nick Cave's life. And he really, really liked that approach. He really liked what I was doing, and he was actually writing a very funny lines for the cover of the book, where he was saying that he really likes the book. It's a bunch of lies, but it's closer to the truth than any other biography.
That's interesting. I think that Nick Cave is also a fan of comics, right? I understand.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
All right. So that's why, in part, he welcomed your project, right, at the beginning.
Yeah. He really, really liked the book, and he really endorsed it. And yeah, we met several times after the book came out, and he was doing concerts in Berlin, and I met him in the backstage. And last time he told me, yeah, well, I hear the book is doing very good. I have to sign it all the time.
Yeah, that's great. I love the book. There are two or three books that I love. Basically, I like all your work. but this Nick Cave book, the Johnny Cash, okay, and a Knockout that we will talk a little bit later. But moving on, you also wrote a biography about Fidel Castro, right? Well, that's
Yes.
interesting, you know, because I don't know if it's the first graphic novel or graphic biography about Fidel Castro. I have seen many about Che Guevara, for example, you know, but not many people want to write about Fidel Castro. I mean, how did that come about, you know?
The idea evolved around the project that actually started the whole thing. That was an idea of my publishing house to let me do Carnet de Voyage, a travel sketchbook about a country. And they say, well, we would like to send you to a country, so just pick one. And then in the news, it was that Fidel Castro resigned from his political power in Cuba. So I said, wow, this is going to be interesting. So I go to Cuba. I learned a little bit Spanish before, which I really couldn't use when I was there because I was not understanding a word what they were saying. So I was in Cuba for 1 month and I did a lot of sketches and illustrations. And after that, I did this travel book called Havana. And then while I was in Cuba, I already decided, okay, I should do a biography about Fidel Castro. He's a really interesting figure. And everybody's just focusing on Che Guevara, but Fidel Castro is much more interesting figure because there's so much that he has to deal with. So I made a decision, okay, I do something about Fidel Castro. When I came back to Berlin, I started working on the book and it became like a huge task because, well, you have to put almost 80 years of really complicated history into one book. So this was very challenging for me. And I did quite a similar thing than I did with the biographies about musicians. I wanted to find a personal view on the life of Fidel Castro. I didn't want only to tell the life of the person of Fidel Castro. I also wanted to give a personal view on what happened in Cuba. And so I invented this German journalist who's our narrator, and we follow his story, but we also follow the story of Fidel Castro. And then these two opponents in the story, they show something like a personal view on the theme of how to deal with ideology or ideals. And I think that what makes the book quite special, because it also shows my inner fights with what I should think about the revolution. I'm completely torn apart between if I really admire what they did or if I hate what came out. So there's still a fight in me, and the book shows exactly that.
Right, correct. So that's it was in Cuba that you became fluent in Spanish, right?
No.
All right, we're running out of time. Let's go quickly over some of your other books because I mean, you have focused so far. You have focused on, among other things, on biographies of musicians, and then you have another side, another dimension. You know, there is another dimension of your work. Okay, where you deal with the sportsmen, sportswomen, okay, the story of Yusuf Omar, okay, the boxer, right, and finally your most recent book, right, Knockout, right. Now, what's so interesting to you about boxing?
I'm not really a boxing fan, I have to say. when I saw there is a book about the boxer Herzko Haft, which was written by his son. I saw it in my bookstore, and I thought, wow, well, this is an interesting topic. I read it, and then I was really intrigued by the story, and I really wanted to do something about this story of Herzko Haft, because it was telling so much, and it had such a dramatic impact. So I decided, yeah, I do something about boxing, so I have to do some research to make the boxing scenes intense or realistic. So I went to some box fights, and I sat down with my sketchbook, and I really enjoyed it. And then I was able to draw the boxing scenes and little details that I picked up from watching box fights. And I put these little details into the story. So I think that they made the story much more intense. And and boxing is a sport where a lot of great stories are happening. I mean, you have all these great movies about boxers, like Raging Bull, for example, and well, you don't have those stories in other sports like tennis or something. There are not so many great stories around. So I was always interested in stories about boxing. So I made a little story about another boxer who was sent to a concentration camp. It was a short story for a collection. And then during the research, I also found the story of Emil Griffiths, and I couldn't believe the impact of the story when I was reading it online. But I just finished the book about Herzko Haft, so I said I cannot do another story about a boxer again. My publishing house would kill me. So I did other things in between. And after the Nick Cave book, I came back to the story of Emil Griffith, and I said, okay, now's the time to tell the story. And that's what I did. And then, yeah, the book Knockout came out, and I really like the book. I think it's one of my best books. Not only because I like the drawings, or for example, I really like the idea of the setup of the narration, because yeah, most of the times I do narrations that have a framework, that have a narrator, and in this part I really like how the framework is implemented in the story itself.
Yeah, and there are many themes involved here, right? Racism, homosexuality or bisexuality, even the American dream, because Emil Griffith, I mean, it's not the typical person who arrives in the United States following the American dream, It's more like the American dream follows him, right? and being so successful, he always lives with this moment when he kills his rival in the ring, right?
Yeah, it was one of the biggest incidents that happened in the boxing world. Still, it's still one of the most brutal fights in the history of boxing. You can still see the movie on YouTube. It's really hard to watch, especially in the end. And
I've seen it. I've seen it.
yeah, it's really brutal.
Yeah.
And if you see this, you cannot put Emil Griffith's personality together with what was happening in the ring at that time. He was such a loving person, very gentle to everybody, and he was actually he was just thrown into the ring. He didn't want to be a boxer in the beginning, and later on he was much more comfortable with designing ladies' hats. Pardon me. and yeah, he was such a lovable character, and then you see what happened to him, and you see what he was going through, and what resulted in this horrible incident in the ring. So this is really like the big story that that you really have to tell, and it shows a lot about prejudice and how to come over prejudices, and just let people do what they want, like let them love who they want, and just accept them as they are.
Correct. Okay, we're finishing the interview. We asked you to recommend us some German comic book authors, right? And you chose, for example, James Harder, okay, among others. Is he a favorite of you?
No, I wouldn't say favorite. I mean, the people that I selected, I have to say, they're very random. Let me say the German comic book scene in the last 15 years became really, really huge. When I started working in comic books, the German comic scene was very, very small. You had mostly cartoon people or funny people, and the only one who was like really, really successful, even in other countries, was Ralph König. And that changed in the last 15 years completely. So we have a huge scene of really, really interesting artists, and it's very difficult to pick three. And also, well, a lot of them, they are translated into different countries, and they are very successful in other countries. And and Jens is one of them. He's also living in my neighborhood, and he has a very, very special, very graphic style. And he's not really doing comics in a traditional way. He's more using like a collage style of storytelling, and he's like using very big themes like the evolution, for example, or the creation of the earth, or the history of man. And so yeah, he has a very, very impressive style.
You also told us about Julio Sterle.
That's a very funny picture. Yeah, Julio Sterle is a friend of mine since a very, very long time. He lives in Munich, and I think he's one of the most talented comic artists we have in Germany. He's very much influenced by, like, for example, Mike Mignola, and he also has a focus on very dark stories, and also very fantastic stories. And he's also using his own biography in his story. For example, in Hector Umbra, you can easily recognize people from his surrounding that he puts into the story, and he mixes it with paranoia and aliens from outer space to tell a really, really personal and dark story. And in his new book that just the first part just came out, it's called Vatermilch. He tells a story about his father, and I really, really like his style. It's very fantastic.
What about Barbara Yelling?
Yeah, Barbara Yelling, she also moved to Munich. She used to live in Berlin, and she has a very a style which is, like, you would say it's more like a painted style. And she's also doing a lot of very personal stories. And this is my favorite book of her, that is also telling a very personal story about her grandmother. And she's actually telling a story about a large part of the German history from the perspective of a woman that was not like a leading figure at that time. She's more like a girl that just wanted to have a life, and you can see through her eyes all the things that were happening in Germany during the Nazi time, and it really, really moved me. It really touched my heart. Although the main figure is not a heroine or not a figure that you easily would identify with, and that makes it so special. This book is that's very interesting. It's there is a edition for schools, and a lot of children are reading the book in school. And this is something that also happened in Germany in the last years, that more and more comics and graphic novels, they're used for education, and they're used in school. That's something that also the Goethe Institute is doing a lot. And they're really, really pushing German comic books, which I'm really thankful of.
Correct. Well, the Goethe Institute is one of our sponsors, you know, in Comics in Dialogue. Well, this is our end of conversation, but you promised to do some live drawing for us. Could you do that? I mean, like 5 minutes, you know, because we are going over the top with time. All right, so,
Yeah, so
we can stop sharing the screen, and if you can do some live drawing for us, that would be fantastic.
So I made a little unstable construction here. So the thing that I was thinking about is when you draw a character for so many times, then you really you can draw him out of your head. So I'm drawing a little Nick Cave. And I can explain something about how I got access to his, like you say, physiognomy. It's first, well, using a lot of pictures, copying them, and then slowly you find out certain patterns in the face that are always well, make the person recognizable, and that's why his big forehead, the nose. Most of the times he has a cigarette. And then he has a chin that's moving quite backwards. And then you have him more or less.
Nice.
Hey.
I mean, really quick, eh?
Yeah, I was drawing him quite a lot.
I know. I mean, and that's great. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We have some questions from the audience, right? That you can give an answer to.
Okay.
One of them says, since you are keen on writing about sportsmen and so on, would you consider writing a book about Spanish tennis champion Rafa Nadal?
I have to say I never heard of his name. I'm not really into the world of tennis. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to read the story if there's something that clicks to me. I mean, when I do stories about sportsmen like Samir Yusuf Omar or Emil Griffiths or Herzko Haft, it's not, the book is not about the sport in general. It's the story behind it. In Samir Yusuf Omar's story, it's a story about migration. Leaving your home and trying to get to Europe. And in Herzko Haft, it's actually about Holocaust and all the things that happen to somebody who survived. And in Griffiths, it's about it's about homophobia and prejudices. And so I would need to read something about the tennis star and see if there's something behind the story. All these three books, they're using the sport to get an access to a very difficult theme.
Right, correct. Andre Hochemer, my pronunciation, my German pronunciation is really bad. Hello, Reinhard, nice to see you here. It's a translator, okay? We met twice in Frankfurt and in Valencia. I would like to ask you, what do you think about the Spanish comic scene? Danke.
I have been to some festivals in Spain, and I saw some really interesting works there, but I cannot remember their names. But one of my favorite artists, I wouldn't say he counts. He's Spanish speaking, but he's actually from Argentina, I think. Jorge Gonzalez. I'm a really huge fan of his work. Okay, but he doesn't count as a Spanish artist.
Not so far. Maybe you've heard about Paco Roca. Paco Roca is very famous.
Oh yeah, Paco Roca. He's really good. Yeah. Yeah. See, you have to mention some names, and then I.
Right. Well, you have to follow our conference, and you will learn
okay,
about them.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Another question. Thanks, Maria Porras. Thanks for being with us today. Reinhard, beyond the lyrics, do you incorporate, adapt other aspects? For example, rhythm, intensity of the music of Cash or Cave to their graphic biography? Thanks.
I think I didn't understand the question right.
Basically, what I think she's asking is that you try not only to introduce the lyrics or the content of the songs, but also other dimensions of songs, right? Rhythm, for example, intensity of the music, etc., etc.
Yes. At some points, I also try to change my style, the style of drawing to illustrate the stories. Like for example, in the Nick Cave book, there is an illustration of a song. I forgot the name, and I changed my style completely into some kind of funny American 60s drawing style. And then in other parts, I go really harsh, almost painted life drawing style, and also I try to find rhythm in the illustration of the songs. Like in the Nick Cave art book, we made an art book that came along with the graphic novel. There's an illustration of the song Staggerly, where I used the lyrics and I tried to do in the illustration. I tried to follow the highlights of the music, like when there's a bang or the people shooting or the story goes wild, and I do the same in the drawings. That's what I really like. If I could make a little foresight into my next project, I'm trying the same again, because at the moment I'm working on a project about the life of David Bowie, and we make two parts. And in the first part, I concentrate on the time of Ziggy Stardust. And in the album of Ziggy Stardust, he's telling a story. And it's very fascinating what he's doing there, what he's actually doing on this album by narrating the story about this alien rock star. He's doing something about the world of rock and roll, and the point where he is at that time. So I'm trying to illustrate this story, and actually I have to do that without the words, because it's very difficult to get the permission to reprint the lyrics. So this is quite a very challenging part about the project, is to tell the story of the songs of the album Ziggy Stardust without using the words. And I'm still thinking about how to do that more in the most elegant way.
All right. When do you think that this book will come out finally?
The second part will come out in the beginning of 2022. Mm-hmm. And the second part, which is focusing on his time in Berlin, I don't know yet. Yeah, it's quite a big project, because it will be in color. It's my first book where I work with somebody who's helping me with the colors. So it's quite a challenging project. But well, I mean, it's David Bowie. It has to be color, like lots of color. Johnny Cash has to be black and white with more black in it. So, but David Bowie has to be color.
Right. I mean, we are over the time, you know. But yes, that was something that I wanted to talk with you, you know, because yes, I mean, it surprised me that, for example, Berlin Noir or Berlinoir, I don't know how to say it, have colors. Berlin Noir have colors, right? Okay, being like a, you know, such a dark story, you know, with the vampires, you know, and so on, you know. While usually you don't use colors, right? I mean, in Johnny Cash, you know, in Knockout, you know, in many books, you know, you just concentrate, you know, on black and white, you know. So, but you are changing that with David Bowie, right?
I mean, I'm thinking exactly about if I need color in a story or if I don't need color. In Johnny Cash, I really don't need the color. In the Nick Cave book as well. And in other books like The Boxer, for example, it also doesn't need color. And I really, really like working with black and white, because it puts you in a position as an artist where you really have to think about contrast. But in David Bowie, it has to be color, lots of color. And also we try to make a certain dramatic way with the color, using the color to highlight certain layers in the story. So it will be quite a challenge to do it.
Well, we look forward to reading your book about David Bowie.
Yeah, me too.
You will read first.
Yeah, it's still a long way.
It's been really fun, you know, to talk with you, and we hope to see you maybe in future editions of Comics in Dialogue with us. So thanks, Reinhard, and we hope to see the David Bowie book soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I hope in the future it will be possible again to come to your beautiful country and to join the cool festivals that you have there. Thanks. And to present the Nick Cave book. Correct. No, sorry, David Bowie book.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.